On a cold November night in 1971, a man in a business suit walked onto a commercial airliner, ordered a bourbon, and lit a cigarette like any other passenger. By the end of that flight, he had hijacked the plane, extorted $200,000 in cash, and jumped out of the back of the aircraft into a freezing black sky. He was never seen again. To this day, it remains the only unsolved hijacking in the history of American aviation. And somewhere out there, his identity, his fate, and his money are still missing. Welcome to Ravenlore, the channel that uncovers the stories history left behind. If you love a good mystery, hit subscribe, because this one is far from over. It was November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. At Portland International Airport, a calm, unremarkable man approached the Northwest Orient Airlines counter. He paid in cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle, a flight that would barely last 30 minutes. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. In 1971, no one needed identification to board a plane. No metal detectors, no security checks, just a ticket and a seat. Witnesses would later describe him as unremarkable. Mid-40s, dark suit, black tie, a raincoat folded over his arm. The kind of man you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. He took his seat, ordered a drink, and waited. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper passed a note to a flight attendant. She assumed it was a phone number. She slipped it into her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned in and said quietly, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." She opened it. Inside his briefcase, a tangle of wires and red cylindrical sticks. His demands were precise: $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, a fueled plane, ready to fly. The plane circled Seattle for hours while authorities scrambled to meet his demands. When it finally landed, Cooper released all 36 passengers in exchange for the cash and parachutes, but he kept the flight crew on board. His new destination, Mexico City. The plane took off again. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, at roughly 8 p.m., Cooper lowered the rear staircase of the aircraft, strapped the money to his body, and jumped. Into freezing wind, into total darkness, into a wilderness of forest with no lights below. No one ever saw him again. The FBI launched what would become one of the longest investigations in its history, codenamed Jack. Search teams combed the forests of southwest Washington for weeks. Helicopters, ground crews, nothing. Then, in 1980, 9 years later, a boy digging along the banks of the Columbia River found a rotting stack of cash. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money exactly. It was the only trace of that money that has ever surfaced. Over the decades, investigators tested DNA from the tie Cooper left behind on the plane. The results were inconclusive. More than 800 suspects were investigated. Dozens were seriously considered. None were ever confirmed. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially closed the case. So what actually happened to D.B. Cooper? Theory 1. He never survived the jump. No proper gear, freezing temperatures, and a wooded, mountainous landing zone. Many investigators believe he died within hours of jumping. Theory 2. He was a trained professional. Some believe his precision and calm under pressure suggest military or skydiving experience, someone who had planned an escape route in advance. Theory 3. Someone close to him always knew. Over the years, several families have come forward, convinced a father, uncle, or brother was Cooper, pointing to unexplained wealth, cryptic confessions, or gear discovered decades later. None has ever been proven. And the money, aside from that one stack found in 1980, has never resurfaced. Not one bill has ever turned up in circulation. More than 50 years later, D.B. Cooper is still the only hijacker in American aviation history who was never identified, never caught and never found, dead or alive. Every year, in the small town of Ariel, Washington, people still gather to mark the anniversary of his disappearance. Somewhere in that forest, or somewhere far from it, the truth about that night in 1971 may still be waiting. We may never know who he really was. And maybe that's exactly why we can't stop asking. If you enjoyed uncovering this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Raven Lore. We bring you a new untold story every week. And let us know in the comments what really happened to D.B. Cooper.